to the Genre Hustle, your virtual sci-fi fantasy writers group. I'm Anton.
I'm Jane.
I'm Chris.
I'm Lucy.
I'm Chelsea.
I'm AP.
And I'm Carter.
And this is season 3, everyone. We made it.
Hey!
We made it.
Doing it.
Coming up this season, we have new and exciting special guests. We are going to continue with our episodes about story and story structure.
I'm pumped for that.
Yes,
Yeah.
very exciting.
Getting deep into Act 3 this season.
Do we get to the climax this season?
Oh, no. Not yet.
No, that should
Steady.
that gets its own.
Wait for it, Carter.
Oh, don't rush it.
Eager
Yeah.
beaver.
We're
Come
into
on.
plot structure denial a little bit here.
Yeah.
This is starting to take on other tones. Okay.
Yeah.
And you can also find us on YouTube now. So we are across the interwebs. So this being the first episode of season 3, we're going to talk about our goals, our writing goals. What does it mean to set goals, to not set goals? How do you
goals
set
in
goals?
general. Goals
in general. Which is also, the timing-wise, AP, is very convenient because it is the
Yes, it is, Anton.
Because...
We're a few days away from National Novel Writing Month.
Yes, we are.
God.
Oh man.
Oh, boy.
Damn it.
So what is that, AP?
I'm glad you asked, Jane. So, we figure most of our listeners are at least familiar with NaNoWriMo. But for those of you who are not, it's, like I said, National Novel Writing Month. And it's the month of November. You write 50,000 words of, technically it's supposed to be a new novel. So like a brand new draft of a novel. You're supposed to hit, I think, 1,667 words a day.
Yep.
That's right.
And that gets you the 50,000 at the end of the month.
That
and then,
number is in my brain.
yeah,
Oh, God.
seared there.
Ugh.
And then at the end of the month, you've got, the first draft of a novel.
Or something.
Yeah, or 50,000
something.
words.
Yeah.
You have
We've-
50,000 words of something.
Please listen to our I've Drafted Something Now What episode, because we discussed that a little bit there.
Dude. And there's like a whole infrastructure to it, right? Like last year, I was on I was in the system. I got on. You get on like NaNoWriMo.org and you make a profile
Yeah.
with like a pic. There's almost a social media aspect to it because
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
You can add people to be your like writing friends, and you can schedule
Writing
sprints
buddies.
with them.
Yeah, it's buddy.
I found the sprints especially really useful.
Yeah, the sprints are great.
really
Yeah,
work
the
for me.
sprints. We even use them outside of NaNoWriMo.
That's true.
Yeah, we
That's
use
true.
the infrastructure of the website for our own purposes.
Yeah.
So since some of us are doing it this year, I don't think all of us are, but we know that some of you out there are doing it as well. We're going to share our names on social media on there. You can find us, ask us to be your buddy, and we'll say yes because we want more buddies. And we'll be accountability partners.
And if you want, you can possibly jump on live sprints with us via the internet. We do them all the time together. It'd be fun to have weird people we don't know on the internet
Yeah.
join us.
Or even not weird.
Yeah, you don't have to be weird.
As opposed to the weird people we do know.
Who are in this
But I
room?
will just warn anyone who wants to jump in that AP is a beast.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He is
If you-
a taskmaster.
So just
If you ever wanted to feel inadequate, hop on a sprint with AP.
yeah.
Anyway, we'll
You're really
announce.
selling it.
I was
Yeah,
hoping to go
we'll
easy
announce-
this month.
AP's already written 2,000 words during this podcast.
He was doing it
I just wrote
Just this
2,000
morning.
words, just now.
God. Anyway, we'll announce the sprints on Twitter. That way,
Yeah.
it'll be live.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
So how do we set goals? What do we mean when we're setting goals? What is it? What do we look for when we're setting goals?
Yeah. So, I'm going to sound like a middle school guidance counselor a little bit for a second, but like it is, I think, important to set goals like with any creative project, especially writing. The thing with writing that is like kind of a unique experience is that a lot of it happens in isolation. Even if you're in a super active critique group, like we're all very fortunate to be, when you're really doing the work of creating a novel or writing short stories or submitting, you're really, looking at a computer or maybe a typewriter, I don't know, and you're by yourself. So it's really important, I think, if you want to like get serious about this stuff, to set goals and be able to motivate yourself. And it can be really hard. It's hard for me a lot of the time. I'm getting like marginally better at it. I think one thing to think about is setting short-term versus long-term goals. Setting achievable goals or outcome-oriented goals are things to think about. And yeah, in terms of like short-term versus long-term goals, I mean, it's sort of self-explanatory. A short-term goal could be, I'm going to write a short story this week, and next week I'm going to edit it. And then in that way, you kind of have like deadlines that you set for yourself, and you kind of like can benchmark how you're doing things. And then like in a longer term thing, which obviously lends itself a little more to long form works that you might be doing. One thing that AP does that I am impressed by and don't do myself because I'm not as disciplined is you set like quarterly goals, right?
Yeah, I feel like I pin the needle when it comes to the spectrum of goal setting. I've got yearly, quarterly, weekly, and daily goals.
Daily goals.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
That is very on brand for you.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And I know that's a lot. Even for me, and that's something that I had to train myself to do, but it's just what I found works for me because otherwise I'm just too scattered. I like going to a list and being like, no, these are the things I said I was going to do. I can focus on these things. I can do all kinds of other things. Other things may come up, but if I'm focusing on these things that in a sober moment I planned out, then it just works for me.
Yeah, and you blog about your goals. You hold yourself accountable to the public at large, which is terrifying to me.
Yeah, my one reader.
Yeah.
So I actually, when I first moved to LA, like 6 years ago now, I wrote up a writing business plan for myself,
Wow.
which included
Fancy.
a 5-year goal, which
Jeez.
did not actually pan out. But it helped me. I think what's powerful for me about setting goals is it helps me visualize, like, where do I want to be? Why am I even doing this?
Yeah.
What do I want to be in 5 years, 10 years? And even if I don't actually get there, like I haven't won a Nebula yet, even though that was on actually, that wasn't literally in my 5-year plan.
Yes,
but,
it was.
But I think it's really motivational to sort of be that kind of aspirational writer too sometimes. Like daily goals, great, but also just thinking long term.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took me a while before I had I don't know if it's confidence or just motivation or like the mindset, I guess, to like take writing seriously enough to do this kind of thing. Like I really was like writing in a vacuum for a long time, even for a while after I joined our critique group. And like it kind of took like some encouragement and some like soul searching to get to the point of being like, oh, like I actually think I can make stuff that is worth being read by others, so I should probably figure out how to do that in a more serious way. I don't know. I still don't set goals like AP does. I'll leave a note in my phone, like write the story about the guy who is broadcasting shark news. And,
I do that too. I text myself all the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't remember what it was I was thinking about. I just have this text that says, they find a door. No idea what that means.
I do that all the time because I get good ideas when I'm like falling asleep at night, and I'll just roll over and it's like, oh shit.
And text it to yourself.
Yeah.
So I think I have the opposite problem to a lot of people in this room, in which I will just work for hours and hours and hours at a time, which isn't healthy either, because I think then you lose the joy in writing
And sleep.
Yeah, exactly. So my goals are more set around, let's only write for an hour or two. And when you reach the point of fatigue and you find that you're now destroying rather than creating something good, you need to stop and be a human.
You have more like self-care goals.
In a larger sense, I do think you have to be very careful with goals, because when you're first starting out, they can get in the way of you just learning how to write a book. If you decide, okay, I'm going to be published by the time I'm 30 years old, then all of your focus and your energy is directed towards thinking about being published, thinking about success, thinking about your word counts, how many hours have I put in, and you're forgetting that you actually just need to learn how to write first. You need to learn structure, you need to learn what characters are, you need to learn all these things before you can actually put a book together. And so I found when I was starting out, I was setting up expectations that I was constantly not meeting and becoming very frustrated with it. And so when I threw that out the window, I felt like I started to enjoy writing a lot more. And I also think that stories take on their own time frame sometimes. You can think, well, I'm going to write this scene about this cave over the next week. But then all of a sudden you realize, well, it would be a much better idea and it would serve the story more if they actually spent this section, a longer section of the book. And so I need to research this. And what you're going to do is, if you still try and cram that scene into a week, you're going to sacrifice quality for quantity, or the other way around, whichever one it is. And so I think you just need to make it good first. And if that takes an extra 3 months, it takes an extra 3 months.
That's something that I like have struggled with a little bit too. Like even as I've like tried to take, my work as a writer more seriously and think about it more professionally and stuff, it's like the more you start to like measure yourself up against like the world of publishing and submitting and finishing things and the process and stuff, it can really like take the joy out of it a lot of the time.
And it makes you feel terrible because everyone else is, in your eyes, doing something that's
or even
than
just
you.
yourself. It's a great point. It's actually something I've struggled with as well. Like I like setting goals, but I've had to balance that with what you're saying, because I used to set tons of goals and a lot of them were unachievable. And so I'd get to the end of a quarter or something and be like, oh, I've only crossed off like 3 things off my list. Like, why am I failing? Why am I doing this? So I have had to balance that.
You're not failing, AP.
You're
not failing.
And you're not failing. And that's the thing. You can fall into the trap of thinking that you are, because there's one person on Twitter that got her dream agent in her first day. And the reality is,
people.
I hate those people.
I think that brings up something that I wanted to talk about, which is the types of goals that I think you should think about setting. So you can set goals. The way I was going to talk about it was that it's like setting goals that you have control over versus things you don't. So instead of setting a goal saying, I'm going to publish my book by 2020 or whatever your goal is, or I'm going to get this dream agent, you can't really control that. So instead you can say to yourself, I'm going to set the goal of finishing my novel by 2020, and I'm going to send out 50 queries to X amount of agents. That's the type of goal that you can actually achieve, and you actually have control over it.
But when 2020 comes and it's January the 1st and you haven't hit that goal, then you feel terrible for the next 4 months because you are now behind do you know what I mean?
No, I do. I know what you mean, but I think you're missing what I'm saying. I'm saying instead of setting goals that you cannot affect the outcome of. So for example, if your goal is to get an agent, all you can do to make that happen is to send out the queries and make your query as good as you can. You can't, I feel like you're setting yourself up for that failure if you say, my goal is to get this agent from this agency, or to get an agent by a certain date. That's not something you can like make happen.
Yeah, there's stuff you can do to like improve the probability of it happening. Like
For sure.
Becoming really good at writing and querying.
But querying agents and writing a book are very different things. I can easily query 10 agents a week. That is an achievable goal. But when you say, I'm going to have this book finished by this time period, and you realize the book is going to be a better book if I slow down and I give it an extra 2 months, that is not something that's as controllable, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think the goal of I'm going to finish a book would fall into the category that you're talking about. I'm going to finish this draft of this book, and then I'm going to get this book beta read. It's like you break it down into smaller steps, and those are achievable. And then at the end of the process, you're like, okay, well, the beta reading process took like 7 months longer than I thought it would. So then that gets pushed back. So you're not saying like, I'm going to have a finished book by 2020.
So maybe I misspoke a little bit. So I think we're missing the point. It's not about, I agree with you 100%. You can set a goal for finishing a book by a particular time, but that may or may not happen. I guess my point is to not set goals that you cannot affect the outcome of.
That at the end of the day, someone else decides.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I was going to, just to kind of go off of that, I think the theme about all of these goals is that it's all personal, meaning there's no one set of rules that says this is how you set goals, this is how you follow goals. We've heard 4 different voices and 4 different opinions about what it means to set a goal. And I think the thing that I liked, bring it back to NaNoWriMo for a second, the thing that I liked about NaNoWriMo when I first did it was their whole thing is like, it doesn't matter what you do, just write 1,600 words. It doesn't matter. It's not going to be good. You know that. Just write it. Mm-hmm. And that's so liberating. And it was so, for me personally, that was such an inspiration to be able to go, it doesn't have to be good. Well, shit, I can write anything. I can write terrible for 1,600 words.
And I think the flip side of what I think Lucy is saying too, because I totally agree, it can make, that's the problem with New Year's resolutions too. One of the reasons they don't work is because people start feeling bad when they don't meet their goals.
Hey, I've been flossing every day.
Well, good for you. But in general, I just think we need to be kinder with ourselves when we recognize that we haven't hit whatever goal, whether it is, measurable or achievable or what, and just say, you know what, it's okay. Like, it's okay that I miss the deadline to submit that story where the submission window is closing, I'll have another chance. Just keep going.
And that's really important. And we've actually got an episode coming up this season about care and feeding, and we will cover that.
Yeah, it's important to be nice to yourself with these things, I think.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Well,
and it's very personal what I'm saying, because motivation isn't my problem. It's the opposite thing. So I do think NaNoWriMo is wonderful because it is liberating, like you say, and it's okay. It's a very clear set goal. And for people that have a hard time sitting down and carving out time to write because of X, Y, and Z, it's just a clear, definable thing to do.
Yeah.
The thing I really liked about Nano was that it helped me get my inner critic out of the way. I think I do, just with our critique group, so much beta reading and so much critiquing every 2 weeks that it starts to get in the way of my actual enjoyment of my own writing, especially as I'm working on rewrites and re-outlining and a lot of like major structural things. I start, like, what will happen to me on occasion, and by on occasion, I mean every other week when we sit down for a writing session, or when I'm at home, though this is getting better, and I'll explain why. I will have sat there at my computer for like 2 hours and will have written a 4-sentence paragraph. And it's because I can't get out of my own way. I can't stop. I can't be like, Chelsea, just write the goddamn book. Like, it doesn't have to be good right now. That is kind of the point. But I'm like, no, like, I need to develop the action here. Like, the world building's a little too...
What's the central conflict?
These characters are two-dimensional.
Like, this isn't great. They're just walking through snow. Like, a lot of fantasy is just people walking through snow. It's okay. It's okay. So I'm kind of on a campaign right now called Make Writing Fun. And it's because, like,
I want on this campaign.
Well, it's like, but I'm trying to do it intentionally right now. I'm consuming media that I'm like pumped about, and I'm working through a program called The Artist's Way. You guys need to try this.
What is this? The Artist's Way?
The Artist's
Julia
Way.
Cameron.
Yeah, and we'll put up a link. And what you do is you sit down right in the morning. You like roll out of your bed and you sit down and you handwrite 3 pages, long form, every morning. Handwrite every morning.
Wow.
Handwrite. I'm having really good ideas come out of it that are plugging together bits of stuff that I've been consuming, like live heart transplants and renewable energy and magic, and just plugging together in really different weird ways. And so now it's turned into, from just writing like stream of consciousness, like I woke up and I stepped in cold cat vomit again, to I'm actually like writing short stories every morning. Wow. And it's fantastic.
That's cool.
Yeah, I agree. I want to pick up on that because I think that brings us to another point about goal setting, which is, you talked about how important it was for you to like watch media and read books that you really love to kind of reawaken that spark. And I think sometimes it's easy to forget that part of being a writer is to also have non-writing specific goals as well. So for me, when I first came to LA, my first goal was I got to find other writers. And I found you. Yay. So I could tick that checkbox off that goal. But for example, reading, that's another goal. I try to read like recent novels published in genres that I write in, pretty regularly. And I don't have like set goals, but I would say I read at least like 3 a month or so.
Does anyone else do the Goodreads reading challenge? I did.
Oh, you do that?
Yeah. I'm smashing it right now.
Awesome.
What is that?
You at the beginning of the year, you set a goal of how many books you're going to read that year, and then you just keep track.
You love goals.
Oh yeah.
This is your episode.
Hey, whatever works, right? And also like sending out submissions, which Carter mentioned before too, as a goal. And it's not like, just sitting down and writing, but it's definitely related to writing. So all of that.
Or going to book related things and like meeting other authors or agents or publishers.
Yeah, like when we went to the Nebulas for we BarCon the Nebulas. By the way, we'll be doing that again next May.
Yes, we will.
And there's also a World Fantasy Convention. I believe it's the weekend of Halloween. So it's this weekend.
It's happening right now,
It's
probably.
happening right
We're there
now.
right now.
We're literally there.
If we were there right now, I'd have a lot more tequila in my bloodstream. I don't know. But yeah, so we'll be going to that. It's at the LAX airport. It's at the Marriott down at LAX. So come and find us.
This all kind of goes to motivation. I think
Yeah.
when you talk to goals, is what is the goal that is going to motivate you? And so is it feeling better about the writing? Is it not setting a goal? Is it setting 100 goals? Is it setting, I always go back to your thing, Chris, of the gentleman's 500. I'm like, all right, if I can just get 500 words today, if I can just get 500 words.
Wait, why is it got to be a gentleman's?
Oh, come on. It's funny because it's funny.
Because, it was a bunch of white guys sitting around figuring out.
Exactly.
So it seems appropriate that we're talking about goals and goal setting. So what are our personal goals, Jane? I'll start with you since you're right here.
Why don't you start with you?
Okay,
Anton?
I'll start with me.
Yes.
I see what you did there.
I need a minute.
So I'm going to go back. So number one, I'm doing NaNoWriMo this year for reals this time.
For realsies.
I did it kind of for fakesies last time, but I'm doing it for reals. And I'm going to do the 1,600 words, but I'm going to do it Ursula K. Le Guin style. So I'm going to do the 1,600 words is going to be no punctuation every day. I'm getting...
Oh my God.
Here's what I'll tell you why. Because when we did that, and I've done it a couple of times since, I get right to the emotion, and I realize that's the one thing, right? You've all read my reading. What's
That's
the
true,
one
that's
thing
true.
that's missing that emotional core? So I'm like, I'm going to do 1,600 words a day, nothing but emotions.
Maybe you should be a poet. Like your podcast.
It all makes sense now.
Your
Anton's
podcasting
a
is
poet.
already a form of poetry.
And
but
Duncan's not on the next season because he's got off to become
I've been
a
called a
poet.
lot of things in my life, Carter, but never a poet.
here you are.
Wow. Well, good luck editing that.
So, just for our listeners, Ursula K. Le Guin wrote a book called Steering the Craft. It has a lot of fun exercises. It gets you kind of plugged into different ways to write, and no punctuation was one of them. Really, really fun. So, maybe worth looking into.
Speaking of exercises and emotions, Anton, there's also in Donald Moss's The Emotional Craft of Fiction, he also has exercises, which I actually started doing because I too have a problem with getting emotionally close to my characters. But my personal goal is I have a novel that needs revision. The revisions are going monstrously slowly, but my goal is to finish the revisions by the time I leave for vacation, December 20th. So
Where are you going?
That's my goal. I will be going to Brooklyn.
Oh, cool. Also not a bad place to work on a novel, probably.
Or poetry.
How about you, Chris?
So my goal is I'm also in the throes of rewriting a novel. And originally I was going to try and finish by the end of September. That did not happen. So I'm doing my best to finish it now by the end of the month. So of October. But if that doesn't happen, I will set my goal again for the end of November.
That's the spirit.
Thank
There you
you.
go.
Thank you.
Just
that
keep moving
fire
those
lit.
goalposts.
Yes. I'll just move the goalposts.
My goal is to try and write less mopey characters. I wrote a book and I'm querying it at the moment, and then I was trying to come up with what I was going to write next, and I wrote 20 pitches for a new book, and they were all emotionally tortured characters.
Aw.
And I thought I need to get away
That's
from
so sad.
It's so sad. And I thought I know exactly what all of these stories are. I want to do something because I love to write funny stuff and humor, and I want to get away from that. And so my goal is to just write about a young boy that gets into mischief and
You should come hang
gets
out with
himself
me.
into mischief. Can I get on your happy train?
Yeah.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah,
Let's
that's
do it.
happy train's taking off. My goal is I needed to realize first that I am not rewriting Tarotmancer, I am writing Tarotmancer for the first time. So I have to write Act 2. And that's actually going to be my nano goal, because I think with between Act 2 and 3, I already have Act 1 basically I know it happens. But it's Act 2 is going to be again, an opportunity for me to lean into a lot of the fun stuff. I get to like discover this whole world and do all these fun things and go on hikes with Beth. And like I get to lean into the fun, but also it's going to be a good chance for me to get my critic out of the way and just spitball this world and do all the fun things that I was going to do in book 2, but are now becoming book 1.
I look forward to you just constantly asking yourself, where's the fun?
Oh, yeah. You know what? I'm going to tattoo that on my inner wrist. I'm not going to tattoo that. I'm going to write it in Sharpie on my wrist and say, where's the fun?
Awesome.
Yeah. So I've got nano goals. This will be my 3rd time doing the nano thing. I guess 4th time. And I'm not drafting a new novel. I'm going to be working on revision number 10 of Rat.
10.
Yeah, 10.
You're a warrior.
Do you get a prize if you finish 10?
There's an achievement for double digits.
Yeah, for
really.
sure.
So I'm kind of in the same boat as you, Jane, and you, Chris. Instead of, just writing 50,000 words, I just need to get this version of it finished. I, at sort of Lucy's suggestion, gave myself an extended break from Rat. And I'm hoping that extended break is what I needed to get back into it and finish it.
Cool.
How about Carter?
So I think my goal is a little rocky based on Chris's advice to not set goals that are decided by other people. And so keeping that in mind, I think I do have a goal of kind of changing my submission strategy. So up until now, I've been basically writing mostly short fiction and submitting to publications that seem like the best fit for the story. And I have had a few stories get accepted, which is great, but I haven't gotten paid for anything yet. And so I think I need to refine my approach. And I think my goal is to focus submitting to pro markets first and foremost, and focus on, selling my work as opposed to just giving it away for $0.
That sounds like an awesome goal. I support that.
And it's also it doesn't go against what I'm saying. You as long as your goal isn't to publish the 3 stories by X, but to submit to a certain amount or whatever. That's absolutely what I was trying to say. Yeah.
Totally.
Good.
And I
Good
think
job.
it's smart. I think you should start.
Yeah.
Shoot high.
Yeah.
Come aboard the
It's
happy
a
train.
smart goal.
Yeah. It is a smart goal.
Please no.
Don't start. Yeah, don't start.
All right, now that we've shared some of our goals, we want to hear your goals because wallowing is best when done with others.
Yes.
Misery
Wallow
loves
with us.
company.
Exactly.
Come wallow with
Unless you're on the
us.
happy train with Lucy and Chelsea. The rest of us,
High five.
So yeah, send us your goals. We want to hear what they are.
Yeah, so keep an eye open for our NaNoWriMo sprints when we become the NaNoWriMo hustle. And we'll do it all together. You can buddy us on nanowrimo.org. All right.
So that was the episode. This has been the Genre Hustle.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to The Genre Hustle. You can find us on our website, www.genrehustle.com, on Twitter @genrehustle, or on Instagram @genrehustle. Our podcast is available on all major streaming platforms, including YouTube. Be sure to like, subscribe, and send any feedback or suggestions our way. See you next time.